Welcome to Baha'i Books and Authors, a podcast which introduces to you writers and the works they've penned related to the Baha'i faith. We'll explore the inspiration, the process, and the stories behind their work. I'm your host, Jan Grammer. This podcast is produced by World Unity Media, which also produces Baha'i audiobooks. The Baha'i International Community has been a steady, driving force behind a remarkable journey of women's leadership and progress within the United Nations and across the world. Over decades of collaboration and advocacy, women have shaped policies and advanced the global vision of partnership between women and men. In Full Partnership, 30 Years of Women's Advancement at the United Nations and Beyond is a collection of statements by the Baha'i International Community on the subject of gender equality. The foreword tells us the Baha'i International Community has participated in consultations about gender equality since the establishment of the United Nations, including all 4 UN World Conferences on Women and the UN Commission on the Status of Women. That first conference on women was in Mexico City in 1975, then Copenhagen in 1980, Nairobi in 1985, and Beijing in 1995. It was at the last that the historic Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action was adopted. What are some of the key milestones and achievements highlighted in the collection of BIC statements that continue to inspire progress in this arena? It's an honor to have with us today Bani Dugal, Principal Representative of the Baha'i International Community. Welcome, Bani.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be with you.
What is the Baha'i International Community and what's its relationship to the United Nations?
The Baha'i International Community represents the community of Baha'is around the world and has consultative status with the United Nations Economic and Social Council. We have an office in New York and Geneva. Our office in New York is where I am situated and where we've been engaging on the discourse on gender equality ever since the inception of the United Nations.
How did early engagements shape the BIC's future with the United Nations?
One of the first institutions that the United Nations established was that of the Commission on the Status of Women. Baha'i representatives have been engaging at the Commission on the Status of Women, but also across the board at other fora of the UN to ensure that gender equality issues are mainstreamed in the agenda and the conversations that are being had, whether they are on the environment, economics, global policy, on any issue for that matter, because gender equality is germane to any of those conversations.
In Full Partnership particularly reflects the Fourth World Conference on Women and the resulting Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. Why was this declaration described as an agenda, and how is it unprecedented?
The Beijing Platform for Action and declaration was an agenda that was set for governments to implement gender equality in their national policies as well as in the global policies. It's an agenda that has been complied with ever since, even 30 years after the Beijing conference. The normative standards have been advancing over these years beyond what was set at the Beijing conference. And so the agenda is to further the advancement of women and based on the years in which the discussions are happening. Even 5 years after the Beijing conference, the world had changed. We were concerned about issues of globalization. We were concerned about the HIV/AIDS pandemic. We also were thinking about how men and boys could play a particular role in advancing gender equality. This is an issue that Baha'is had been talking about well before that time. But in the year 2000, 5 years after Beijing, during the Beijing +5 discussions, the issue of the role of men and boys in advancing gender equality was also brought to the agenda and has been a part of the agenda of the Commission on the Status of Women since.
What are some of the ways that males have a role in gender equality?
Well, when we talk about the advancement of women to achieve gender equality, to achieve parity with men, to have a partnership between women and men, we can't do it without including men and boys, because it's very much to their own advantage that we advance together. Gender equality, we believe as Baha'is, is not only for the benefit of women, but it's for the benefit of all of humanity, and in particular for that of men. There's a Baha'i quotation, which is one of my favorites, that says, as long as women are prevented from attaining their highest possibilities, so long will men be unable to achieve the greatness which might be theirs. We also talk about the bird of humanity as having two wings. One is male, the other female, and not until both wings are equally strong can the bird fly to its greatest heights. This is a quote from the Baha'i writings, which has been quoted by others over the years. I even heard the famous feminist Gloria Steinem use it in one of her talks.
I find this aspect really fascinating. Are you looking at legislation that would somehow bring men and boys into this conversation in a different way? Education, maybe especially for boys? Please give me an example.
We believe education is key. We do need to educate girls and boys and women and men about why it is important to have an equal society, to have a partnership. Oftentimes, it's women who don't make the space for men to contribute in the household. It's in their domain for a long time. I hear over and over that women struggle with the fact that now the men are going to be involved in the household as well. It's only when they realize that when men are involved and they're working together as partners, and they have the free time to express their contributions in public life outside of the home. Otherwise, it's just not possible to do it all. There are women who are trying to do it in some societies where men are not assisting. It's extremely difficult to juggle all the needs of the household, their work life, as well as any contributions they might make in public life or at the community level. We cannot do it all by ourselves, either women or men. And we need to work together, shoulder to shoulder, and set an example for the boys and girls who are watching us. So, yes, there's the formal education, which is necessary, but also the informal settings within the family, within the community, mirrored at high levels of government, that is going to usher in the change that we need to see.
One of the statements in the compilation, In Full Partnership, says, the advancement of women is a prerequisite for peaceful and prosperous societies. What example best illustrates the link between gender equality and societal peace and prosperity?
Gender equality is, as you said, we believe a central component of a flourishing society and therefore a prerequisite for lasting peace, because it's not merely a social good to be achieved for half of humanity, just as it's not possible for one part of the human body to thrive apart from the whole. Neglecting the needs of women and girls and denying resources and institutional support or rejection of their dignity or rights or experiences of women, and the lack of women's participation has actually stalled peace processes and hindered economic, intellectual, social, and moral advancement. So we not only fail women and girls, but also narrow the horizon of what men and boys might become in a just and inclusive society. When there isn't equality, there can be tensions in a society, and that erodes peace. We have seen many examples of when women are allowed to participate in their societies. They can serve as early warning systems for possible upcoming unrest. They can sit at the peace table and help with negotiations. And they can also act as mediators in their society because, they have their finger on the pulse. They know where the fault lines are, and they understand very well because they are the ones who are oftentimes holding a family or community or their society together. So they know what needs to be done and how they might assist.
Thank you. I'm going to read the 12 critical areas of concern or the 12 statements in this, and then I would like to ask you which of these 12 has advanced the most from the BIC's perspective. They are women and poverty, education and training of women, women in health, violence against women, women in armed conflict, women and the economy, women in power and decision-making, institutional mechanisms for the advancement of women, human rights of women, women and the media, women and the environment, and the girl child.
Sadly, there hasn't been as much advancement as we would have liked to have seen. Since you're asking me which ones have advanced more than others, I would start with education. Many countries have worked a great deal to ensure that education, not only at primary levels for girls, but also at secondary and tertiary levels. There have been great strides made across countries. And in fact, in some parts of the world, women have advanced at faster paces than men have. The Caribbean is one. In fact, there's a bit of an inequality when it comes to the education aspect. And there are many women at university and postgraduate levels as compared to the men. Also in the Middle East, in the Arab world, we see women have advanced at great strides in areas of higher education, oftentimes faster than men, because men join businesses soon after university or even high school. Since women aren't working in their family businesses, they go on to study. In parts of Africa, parts of Asia, we see that progress may have been slower, but it's still a lot better than it was 30 years ago. Another area is women and the environment. And that's because the women's movement and the environmental movement have at times walked side by side and complemented each other. The women's movement has done a lot to highlight what needs to be done for the environment. And this is not only at the level of policy, at the international and national levels, but in the grassroots, because women are impacted greatly by the environmental degradation. They're the ones who are consuming a lot of the energy sources that may be degrading the environment, or on the other hand, the clean solutions that are environmentally friendly. So they're making those decisions, and there's been a lot of focus on educating women at the grassroots as to the choices they make. Another one is media. And by media, I mean presence of women in media has increased. I won't say that the media is portraying women in ways that I think they should be portrayed as contributors to the thought processes and the well-being of humanity. Rather, women are still being objectified by the media, which is of concern. But we do see more and more women executives rising in the media circles. And then lastly, concern for the girl child. And I say this with a heavy heart because while, yes, I think there's a great deal of awareness of how we must educate our girls, we must protect our girls, we must provide health care to girls equal to that of boys. And yet we see violence against girls has possibly increased in many parts of the world. No matter how advanced a society may be economically or socially, violence against women is on the rise.
An emphasis is placed throughout the statements on full partnership. What does full partnership look like?
That's a very good question. We are all learning what equality will look like and what full partnership would look like. What I would like to see partnership to be a complementarity. So it's not about women and men performing the same tasks or acting in exactly the same way. It's complementing one another to have progressive, strong communities, families that are based on the principle of unity and for the well-being of their family, their community, and their nations. And in fact, humanity will benefit when women and men are working shoulder to shoulder, helping one another in building a society which is based on unity and justice.
As we approach Beijing plus 30, how do you envision the next phase of global women's advancement?
Well, I really would like to see women advancing not only in material ways. This advancement that we talk about, this gender equality and this partnership is based on spiritual foundations. the advancement has got to be from a spiritual sense, not only a material advancement. Because unless we learn to advance on principles such as love, unity, and the well-being of all, the advancement will not be sustainable. If the advancement is only about women making as much money as men, having all the opportunities that men have, it's wonderful. However, we also have to be thinking together with men for the well-being of humanity so that we do arrive at that place of peace. It's when we are thinking and working together consciously for the betterment of humanity, only then will we have global peace.
What practical actions do you see the average person can take to contribute meaningfully to women's advancement?
I think both women and men have to be conscious about the fact that we want women to advance and we want to achieve gender equality. And for that, it requires sometimes stepping aside and giving someone an opportunity. It requires for us to socialize our children to understand there may be times when our sons have to step back and let women advance, give them the opportunities for men at the workplace do the same, and also to ensure that we are doing it in a way which is fair and just and allowing for women and girls to advance. But if sometimes we need to give them a little edge, well, then so be it.
What gives you hope when you're looking forward to even the next 10 years?
I am very hopeful in the capacity of young people to rise up and continue the work of the women's movement, of the movements that followed when men and boys have also joined the movement to work towards gender equality. Unfortunately, in recent years particularly, we've seen some pushback against the advancement of women. And these social forces, sometimes political forces, have placed impediments in any further advancement or even tried to roll back any advances that have been made. I'm hopeful that the younger generations are going to step up and prevent any erosion of any gains that we have seen.
This has been a very stimulating conversation. Thank you so much, Bani, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a conversation I love to have and I think is so vital for our society today and has been in the past and will remain to be in the future.
Bani Dugal, Principal Representative of the Bahá'í International Community. In full partnership, 30 Years of Women's Advancement at the United Nations and Beyond, a collection of statements by the Bahá'í International Community on the subject of gender equality, is available at Bahá'íBookstore.com or wherever you get your distribution services. Subscribe or follow Bahá'í Books and Authors with your chosen podcast platform. This podcast is produced by World Unity Media.